Two tall Apache sisters knocked on a poor rancher's door at midnight. The sound froze him where he stood. It wasn't a random knock. 3 slow hits, a pause, then 3 more. Silas Ward had heard that rhythm once before, 15 years ago, the night Martha died. He braced his back against the door, heart beating like a drum in his chest. Outside, 2 long shadows stretched across the porch, shadows that seemed to belong to women at least 7 feet tall. But that couldn't be. Women didn't grow that tall. Not in any world Silas knew. "Silas Ward," said a voice from the other side, low and steady, calm like water but heavy like stone. Then a second voice joined in. Same tone, but with a different weight behind it. "We know you're listening," it said. "We've been watching your house for 3 days. We know you're alone, we know you don't sleep much, and we know you talk to her grave at dawn." Silas felt the heat drain from his skin. No one knew about the grave visits, not anyone alive anyway. "You think this is revenge?" the first voice asked. "You think this is about what happened at Copper Creek?" Silas had never heard of Copper Creek, or so he thought, but something deep in his chest stirred, a strange pull, like a memory waking up too fast. "How he came," said the second voice, "because of what Martha told us before she passed, about a promise she made, about something she hid from you." The world tilted under Silas. His wife had spoken strange words in her final days, names he didn't know, languages he didn't understand. The doctor had said it was a fever, said people near the end often talked nonsense, but listening now, these women seemed to know things no strangers should, and suddenly her final ramblings didn't sound so random anymore. Silas leaned his ear against the door, trying to catch every word. What if Martha's last words weren't nonsense at all? What if they were instructions, warnings? His stomach turned. What had she kept from him? "We're not here to hurt you," the first voice said. This time it sounded almost kind, gentle in a way that didn't fit the size of the shadow outside. "But we do need to come in. What we have to show you, it can't be told through a door." Through the window, Silas saw them. 2 Apache women, both well over 6 feet tall, shoulders broad, postures proud. Not spirits, not visions, just real, unusually tall women built for hard country. They stood still, patient like they had time. Their faces were cut from the same stone, high cheekbones, calm eyes. Sisters, no doubt. Their clothes were plain but neat. Dark cotton dresses, worn boots, long braids wrapped in strips of white cloth. They didn't look like threats. They looked like people used to being taken seriously. "My name is Ayana," said the taller one. "This is my sister, Ka. Your wife saved our brother's life 20 years ago. We've been searching for her ever since." Silas blinked. 20 years ago, Martha would have been 16, still living with her parents near the border. She never once mentioned the Apache, never claimed to save anyone. Her stories were simple: farm work, learning to read, getting ready for marriage. "There's a mistake," he said through the door. "Martha never lived with your people. She grew up on a small farm." The sisters looked at one another. Through the window, he saw Ka's frame shift forward, blocking out the moon. "She told you she grew up on a farm?" Ka asked. There was something in her tone. Not sarcasm, not anger. More like pity. "Silas Ward, your wife lived with our tribe for 3 years. She spoke our language. She hunted with our women. She knew our ways." Silas shook his head. "No, that can't be." "She had a scar," Ka added, "on her left shoulder, from a mountain lion. It attacked while she was out hunting." The words hit him square. Martha did have a scar there, a long, rough line. She always said it came from falling off a horse. But now that he thought about it, it never looked like a fall. It looked like claws. "She made us promise something," Ayana said. Her voice had softened. "A debt to be paid. Something to do with you. But first, you need to know who your wife really was." Silas's hand trembled on the latch. Everything he thought he knew, their courtship, their quiet years together, it all felt different now. If the sisters were telling the truth, Martha had lived a life he never knew. And if she'd made them promise something about him, what had she gotten him into? The latch was cold. Silas hesitated. His instincts told him to keep that door shut. But something else, a question that had waited 15 years, pushed him forward. If Martha had really lived among them, why hide it? What was she trying to protect? He opened the door. The sisters stood tall in the glow of the porch lamp. Ayana towered, her height filling the doorway like a cliff face. Ka was a bit shorter, but wider in the shoulders. Her hands looked strong enough to snap firewood bare, but neither moved with threat. They stepped slow, deliberate, careful not to crowd. "Thank you," Ayana said as she crossed the threshold. Ayana stepped inside with slow, deliberate movement. "We know this is hard," she said softly. Silas backed toward the fireplace, keeping a good stretch of space between them. "Then talk," he said. "If Martha lived with your people, why'd she leave? Why lie to me about it?" Ka lowered herself into a wooden chair that groaned under her weight. "She didn't lie about everything," she said. "Her parents did have a farm near the border. But when she was 14, Comanche raiders hit, killed her parents, burned the house down." Ayana stayed standing. "She ran into the desert, hurt, bleeding, no food, no water. Our hunting party found her 3 days later. She was half dead. The medicine woman said to leave her, but our brother Takakota begged the elders to let her stay." Silas tried to picture it. Martha, just a girl, wandering in Apache country, wounded, scared, desperate. It didn't match the woman he'd married. Martha had always seemed so calm, so put together, like she belonged everywhere. "She learned quick," Ka said. "Our language, our ways, how to track and survive. The women trusted her. She earned it." Silas narrowed his eyes. "Then why did she leave?" The sisters looked at each other again, this time longer, heavier. Ayana turned toward the window, eyes scanning the night. "She fell in love," she said, "with a white man who came to trade with us, someone who didn't know about her time with our people. She was afraid he wouldn't accept her." The words hit like a stone in the gut. "That man was me." "Yes," Ayana said, turning back to him. "She left our tribe to marry you, but she made us promise to keep watch from a distance, to make sure she stayed safe. And we have, for 15 years. Silas felt his knees wobble. "You've been watching us all this time?" "Not close," Ka said quickly. "Just checking in, seeing that she was happy, that you treated her right. She was our sister. We couldn't just let her go." Ayana's voice turned serious. "But that's not why we came tonight." Silas gripped the back of a chair. "Then why?" 3 weeks before she passed, Ayana said, she sent word. She knew the end was near. She had one last request. "What kind of request?" "Our brother Takakota, the one who saved her," Ka said, her jaw tightening. "He's in danger, bad danger. She made us swear if anything ever happened to him, we'd come to you." Silas felt his hands go cold. "What kind of danger?" "He's been accused of killing a settler," Ka said. "Falsely. The territorial marshal is after him, and he's not alone. 12 men, all armed. They want him dead, no trial." The room went still, only the fire crackled. Silas stared at them, the truth landing slowly. "She wanted me to help him," he said. "More than that," Ayana said. "She wanted you to hide him, keep him safe until we can prove he's innocent." Something moved outside the window. Silas squinted into the dark. Riders, 3 of them, maybe 4. Moving fast, coming straight toward his land. Torches in hand, Kay's voice came low. "Because he's already here." Silas watched the riders close in, their torchlight flickering like fireflies with a grudge. He counted 4. Horses galloping hard across the dirt, kicking up dust behind them. "Where is he?" Silas asked, barely above a whisper. Ayana moved to the window, blocking most of the view. "In your root cellar," she said. "We brought him 2 hours ago while you were sleeping. Martha told us you sleep deep. You brought a wanted man here without telling me?" Panic clawed up his throat. "Do you understand what that means? If they find him, they'll hang me with him." Ka stood slowly. The chair gave a creak of relief. "Takakota didn't kill anyone," she said. 3 days ago, a settler named Morrison was found dead near Willow Creek, shot in the back. Takakota was out hunting nearby. Someone saw him, that's all." "That's not proof of innocence," Silas snapped. "The real killer left Morrison's horse tied near our camp," Ayana said. "Tried to make it look like Takakota took it, but Morrison was killed with a rifle. Takakota only carries a bow." Outside, the hoofbeats got louder. Silas saw the lead rider now, big man, long coat, badge glinting off torchlight. "That's Marshal Garrett," he breathed. "He doesn't ask questions before pulling the trigger." Kay moved toward the back. "We should go to him. If they search the house—" "No." Silas grabbed her arm. She didn't move. She felt like grabbing a fence post sunk in stone. "If you run now, it'll look bad. They'll tear this place apart to find out what scared you." The riders were close now. Close enough Silas could hear their voices. Low. Urgent. Marshal Garrett raised his hand, and his riders came to a stop about 50 yards from the house. "Silas Ward," he called, his voice cutting through the still night. "We need to talk." Silas's mouth went dry. The marshal wasn't here at midnight for neighborly chatter. Someone had tipped him off. The question was, how much did he know? "Answer him," Ayana said under her breath. "Act normal." Silas stepped out onto the porch, trying to steady his voice. "Marshal," he said. "Bit late for a visit, ain't it?" Garrett nudged his horse closer, hooves crunching gravel. "We're tracking a fugitive, Apache brave named Takakota. Word is he's been seen nearby." Silas swallowed hard. "Haven't seen any Apache around here," he lied, the words like ash in his throat. "Mind if we look around?" Garrett asked, but the tone told Silas it wasn't really a question. Behind him the old floorboards creaked, Ayana and Kay, shifting near the windows ready if things turned ugly, but 4 armed men were 4 too many, no matter how strong the sisters were. "Of course," Silas said, stepping down from the porch, "though I'm not sure what you'll find. Ain't exactly a place with many hiding spots." Garrett dismounted. His boots hit the dirt hard. "We'll see for ourselves." The marshal and his men began heading toward the house. Silas caught something in the corner of his eye and froze. Fresh boot prints near the back door. Too big to be his. And they led straight to the root cellar. Garrett was walking right toward them. Silas's pulse jumped. If Garrett spotted those tracks, the trail would take him straight to Takakota. No chance to explain, no time for mercy. "Marshal," Silas called, forcing himself to move toward Garrett. "Before you start your search, there's something. You ought to know about Morrison." Garrett stopped. His eyes left the ground and locked on Silas. "What about him?" "He came by a couple weeks back, tried to buy this place, offered a lot more than it's worth." The lie came easier than Silas expected. "When I turned him down, he got riled, said I'd regret it." "Morrison was a land speculator," said one of Garrett's men, a thin fellow with a scarred jaw. "Always sniffing round water rights." Garrett's brows drew together. "You think his death's tied to a land deal?" "I think someone wanted this land bad enough to kill over it," Silas said. "It was a long shot, but it worked." Garrett stepped away from the boot prints, his attention shifting to something bigger than just a fugitive. "Anyone else been nosing around?" Garrett asked. "Not lately," Silas said, "but Morrison told me he was up against other bidders. Said some outfit from back east was buying up land all through the territory." Inside, Ayana's eyes met his through the window. She understood. He was buying time, redirecting suspicion. But how long could it last? These other investors. "Got names?" Garrett asked. "Morrison never said," Silas replied. "But he seemed nervous, like he was outmatched, maybe afraid of losing out to someone with more muscle and deeper pockets." Silas glanced toward the corral. 2 horses stood quiet in the moonlight, ears flicking. "Marshal, if Takakota were nearby, wouldn't he be on foot? Apache don't usually steal horses. They move quiet. Stay low." Garrett nodded slightly. "That's true. But Morrison's horse was missing. It turned up near the Apache camp." "Maybe the real killer took it," Silas offered, "and left it there to shift the blame. Easier to point fingers at a lone Apache than dig into a group of white men with money." The scarred deputy spoke again. "Boss, that actually tracks. Ain't like an Apache to shoot a man in the back and then make off with his horse." Garrett rubbed his jaw, chewing on the theory. Silas could see doubt start to crack through his confidence, but before the marshal could speak, the sound of hoofbeats echoed in the distance. 2 more riders burst out of the darkness, moving fast. As they drew closer, Silas recognized the man in front, a thick-set older rider with a silver beard and clothes far too fine for ranch work. The younger man behind him looked nervous, eyes darting around. "Marshal Garrett," the lead rider called. "Thank God we found you." "I'm Samuel Burke, Territorial Land Commission," he said, reining in his horse. "This here's Mr. Henley, my associate." Burke dismounted with the ease of someone used to getting his way. "We need—" a word, it's about Morrison. Garrett glanced from Burke to Silas, torn between finishing his search and hearing what the commissioner had to say. Silas held his breath. Burke stepped closer. "Mr. Ward, I understand Morrison came by recently, asking about this land," Burke said smoothly. The way he said it made Silas's skin crawl. There was something slick about the man, something that told Silas he already knew more than he was letting on. "That's right," Silas said carefully. Burke smiled, but it didn't touch his eyes. "Well, I'm here to make a better offer, one I'm sure you'll find hard to refuse." Behind him, the young man, Henley, kept glancing at the house, one hand hovering near the pistol at his hip. Something about his twitchy movements made Silas's gut tighten. This wasn't a land deal. This was about erasing witnesses. Burke's grin widened, yellow teeth showing through tobacco-stained lips. "See, Mr. Ward, Morrison made a mistake. When he came here alone, he was supposed to bring help, but he got greedy. Thought one poor rancher wouldn't be a problem." Marshal Garrett took a step forward, hand drifting toward his holster. "Mr. Burke, what are you saying?" "I'm saying Morrison got what was coming to him," Burke said calmly. "Greedy men don't make good partners. They talk too much. They change plans." The words hung heavy in the air, thick as smoke from a gun barrel. Silas felt his heart pounding. The picture was coming together fast now. Burke wasn't here to buy land. He was here to finish what Morrison started, and silence anyone who knew too much. "You killed Morrison," Garrett said. His voice was flat now, stripped of doubt. "Henley did the shooting," Burke replied with a casual nod toward the younger man. "I just gave the order. Morrison tried to cut us out of the water rights deal, said he'd report us to the Territorial. Governor couldn't have that." Henley shifted uneasily. "Boss, maybe we shouldn't be—" "Shut up," Burke snapped. "They're all going to die anyway. Might as well know why." Garrett went for his gun, but he was too slow. 3 rifles were already aimed at him, his own men turning on him without hesitation. The scarred deputy stood closest. His expression, "Blank, you're in on this," Garrett said, stunned. "We're in it for the money," the deputy said. "More than a marshal's pay will ever get us. Burke's buying water from here to the border. Soon he'll own every spring and stream in the territory." Inside the house, Silas saw movement. Ayanna had eased closer to the front door. Kaya, near the back, preparing. But even with surprise, even with their strength, it wouldn't be enough. Not against 6 guns. Burke pulled his own pistol and pointed it at Garrett. "Here's what's going to happen," he said. "Marshal Garrett dies trying to bring in an Apache fugitive. Mr. Ward here dies in the crossfire. Unfortunate, but believable." "And the Apache?" Garrett asked, still calm. "Oh, we'll find him," Burke said, eyes glinting. "Can't have any witnesses. And the truth? Nobody's going to care if the story's a little off. When folks hear an Apache did it, that's enough. They want someone to hang, doesn't much matter who." Silas's mind ran through every option he had. He could yell, but that would just start a shootout. He could try to jump one of them, but he wouldn't make it 3 steps. Then he remembered something Martha had once told him, years ago while watching the fire, about how the Apache fought when they were outnumbered. "You made one mistake." "Burke," Silas said loudly, lifting his chin. Burke tilted his head. "What's that?" "You assumed I was alone." The words barely left Silas's mouth when the house went dark. Every lantern, every candle, snuffed out in the same breath. Darkness swallowed the yard. And then from that silence, whasht! A sharp sound cut through the night. An arrow slammed into Burke's shoulder, spinning him sideways. A second arrow struck the scarred deputy, dropping him before he could fire, from somewhere beyond the pah. "House," a voice rang out in accented English. "Drop your weapons. You're surrounded." Takakota had left the root cellar. Panic exploded. Burke's men shouted and stumbled, turning in circles with their rifles up, firing blindly into the black. Orders and curses flew like bullets. Silas dropped flat onto the ground, dirt in his teeth, as shots cracked overhead. Heavy footsteps pounded behind him. The sisters. Ayanna burst through the front door, a mountain of movement. She crashed into the nearest gunman, with a sound like 2 trees colliding. Kaya moved wide, circling the chaos, silent and fast. "There!" Henley screamed, pointing toward a flash of muzzle light. "He's by the corral!" someone shouted. Two of Burke's men opened fire, bullets snapping through fence posts, splinters flying. But Takakota was already gone, vanishing into the darkness like smoke on the wind. Marshal Garrett, still clutching his pistol, crawled through the dirt towards Silas. "How many are with you?" he asked. "3," Silas whispered. "2 Apache women and 1 man. But they know this land better than we do." Another arrow cut through the night. This one struck Henley in the leg. He dropped with a scream, his pistol firing uselessly, into the ground. In the flash of gunfire, Silas caught a glimpse of Takakota, lean, quick and deadly, moving like a shadow with purpose. Burke staggered near the fence, still gripping his wounded shoulder. "Forget the arrows," he bellowed. "Find the women, they're too big to hide." But it was too late. The sisters had already found them. Carr came from behind the scarred deputy, her arms wrapping around his neck before he could turn. His rifle clattered to the ground as he fought to breathe. Her grip didn't waver. Ayana emerged beside another man, moving faster than anyone her size should. She grabbed his rifle and twisted. The gun went off into the air, then she ripped it from his hands. One hard punch dropped him flat. "This ends now, Burke," Garrett shouted, rising to one knee. "Drop your weapon and face trial." Burke's answer was a wild shot in Garrett's direction. The bullet missed, but it gave away his position. Takakota's next arrow found Burke's other shoulder, pinning him against a post. He let out a cry and sagged under the weight of it. "My leg!" Henley cried from where he lay in the dirt. "I need help, please." Carr let the unconscious deputy fall and turned toward Burke. In the moonlight, she looked carved from stone. "You killed an innocent man," she said, her voice low but firm. "And you tried to blame our brother." Burke whimpered, his face pale. "It was business, that's all, just business." Ayana stepped beside her sister, eyes hard. "Everything's personal when you kill for money." Together they looked like statues of judgment, tall, still, and impossible to move. Takakota stepped from the shadows, bow still in hand. He was exactly how Silas had imagined. Medium height, broad shoulders, sharp eyes that missed nothing. He didn't look tired. He looked ready. "Takakota," Garrett said, standing now, lowering his gun. "I owe you thanks. And an apology." The Apache brave gave a slight nod. His eyes stayed on Burke, still pinned and groaning. "What happens now?" Silas asked, rising slowly to his feet. Garrett began gathering weapons from the ground. "Now, we haul them back to town. Burke's confession was heard by multiple people. That'll clear Takakota's name." Silas looked around, Burke wounded, Henley crying. The traitor deputies laid out cold in the dirt. The truth was finally out, but something still bothered him. "Why did Martha make you promise to protect me?" he asked the sisters. "She couldn't have known any of this would happen." Ayana and Carr exchanged a long look. Silas saw something unspoken pass between them. One last secret. Kaya turned and walked toward the edge of the property, where an old oak stretched its limbs in the moonlight. She knelt beside the roots and began digging with her hands. "What's she doing?" Silas asked, puzzled. "Martha buried something here," Ayana said. 3 weeks before she passed, she was already weak, but she came out here alone, told us to dig if you were ever in danger." Carr pulled up a clump of soft earth, then another. Her hands struck something solid. A bundle wrapped in oiled cloth. She lifted it free and handed it to Ayana, who began to unwrap it. "She knew," Silas breathed. Somehow she knew this was coming. Inside the cloth was a stack of papers, neatly folded and dry despite the burial. Even by moonlight, Silas could see they weren't personal notes. They were legal. Maps, letters, markings. "Your wife was smarter than any of us knew," Takakota said, speaking at last. "She was dying, and still looking after her family." Garrett stepped forward, curiosity now stronger than caution. "What kind of papers?" Ayana held up the first sheet. "A map," she said. "Every water source in this territory." Silas leaned in. His property was circled in red. So were 5 others. Lines stretched from them to towns farther south. "These places," Garrett said, pointing, "control the flow to every settlement downstream. If someone owned all of them, they'd own the future." Kaya unfolded another sheet. A letter, she said, from Morrison, sent to Burke, 6 months ago. Silas stared at the ink, his chest tightening. Their plan had been clear. Force out small landowners through threats, false charges, and if needed, murder. Morrison kept records, Silas asked, stunned. Greedy men usually do, Takakota said grimly. They want their share of the blood money accounted for. Ayana unfolded another paper. This one's worse, she said. A contract between Burke and several territorial officials. They were promised a cut of the profits from a water rights monopoly. She held it out. Look at the names. Garrett scanned the signatures. His face darkened. These aren't just local players, he said. Judges, legislators, even the governor's chief administrator. The conspiracy stretched wider than anyone had guessed. Burke hadn't just been stealing land, he'd been buying a government. To protect it. How'd Martha get a hold of all this? Silas asked, shaken. She may have been dying, Kaya said softly, but she wasn't blind. Morrison visited her 3 times before he ever came to you, Ayana added. He figured she'd be easy to fool. Thought a sick woman wouldn't catch on, but she listened. Got him talking, even got him drunk once and went through his saddlebag while he was passed out. Silas felt pride swell in his chest, followed quickly by sorrow. Martha, frail and fading, had still been protecting him, still fighting for him. She'd uncovered a conspiracy that stretched to the highest levels of the territory, and she'd done it while staring death in the face. There's something else, Ayana said, pulling out a folded envelope. Silas saw his name written on the front in Martha's handwriting. He reached for it with trembling fingers. After 15 years of marriage, he thought he knew everything about her, but tonight had shown him otherwise. Martha had been brave, sharp, and fiercely loyal, more than he'd ever understood. She said to give you this only after everything was over, Kaya said. After you saw who she really was. Silas opened the envelope, but the words were hard to read in the moonlight. I'll need better light, he murmured, holding it to his chest. What now? He asked Garrett. The marshal was already bundling the papers. Now we take this evidence to the capital. With Burke's confession and these documents, we can bring down everyone involved. But then Silas heard it, the distant thunder of hooves. Not one set, many, from multiple directions. He turned toward the sound. Riders. Back up, he muttered. Burke's men. The noise shifted everyone into motion. Garrett stuffed the documents into his coat. How many? He demanded. Burke wheezed from where he slumped against the fence post, blood darkening his shirt. His smile was cruel. Too many, he rasped. You think 4 of you can take on 20 armed men? Takakota stepped forward, calm as ever, bow in hand. We don't fight them, he said. We disappear. I can't run, Silas said, jaw tight. This is my land. If I flee, they'll burn it down. Say I ran with stolen records. Ayana yanked the arrow from Burke's shoulder. He screamed. Then we make our stand here, she said. But something wasn't right. The sound of hooves came closer, but it wasn't the chaos Silas expected. No shouting, no wild galloping, just steady commands, the jingle of equipment. That's not a gang, Garrett said, squinting into the dark. That's cavalry. A dozen uniformed riders entered the yard. At their head rode a graying officer with stern eyes. Behind him came 2 civilians. One wore the robes of a judge. The other carried himself like someone used to making decisions that changed lives. Marshal Garrett, the officer called. We got your telegram about Burke's operation. Looks like we made it in time. Garrett stepped forward, startled. Captain, I didn't send a telegram. The judge dismounted, scanning the broken scene of gunmen and arrows. It wasn't from you, he said. It came from someone named Martha Ward, sent 3 weeks ago. She laid out everything. Silas staggered. She sent for help, he whispered. Before she passed, the second civilian approached, a folder in hand. She'd been in contact with the governor's office for months, he said, providing names, maps, written testimony. Her final letter kicked off a full federal investigation. The captain nodded toward his men, who moved quickly to secure the wounded. Samuel Burke, you're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and corruption. The case against you has been building for weeks. Burke's face turned pale. No, he whispered. She was dying. She could barely walk. Looks like she was stronger than you gave her credit for, the judge said, dryly. As the soldiers led Burke away in shackles, Silas finally saw the full weight of what Martha had done. While her body had weakened, her will had only sharpened. She hadn't just uncovered a conspiracy, she'd worked quietly with federal authorities, set events into motion, and timed everything down to the day. Takakota's arrival, the sisters' presence, the cavalry's response, it hadn't been chance. Martha had planned it all. "There's one more thing," the government official said, stepping forward. He held out a sealed envelope. "Mrs. Ward left instructions for this to be given to you once Burke was in custody." With trembling fingers, Silas broke the seal and unfolded the letter. He read by the flickering torchlight, "My dearest Silas, if you're holding this, then you've learned the truth about who I was before we met. I should have told you long ago, but I was scared. Scared that once you saw the full me, you'd love me less. The Apache saved me. They gave me strength I didn't know I had. They gave me family when mine was gone, but you, Silas, you gave me something I never thought I'd have again. You gave me peace. You gave me love. I spent 3 years learning how to survive in the wild, but I spent 15 learning how to love in your arms. That was the greater gift. The land you're standing on holds the purest water in the territory. There will always be men who try to take it, but I've made sure they never will. Live free, my love. Live fully. Wherever I am, know I am proud of who you became tonight. Your devoted wife." Martha Silas blinked away the tears as he folded the letter and held it close to his chest. Ayana, Kaya, and Takakota stood nearby, silent now. Their task was finished. "What happens now?" Silas asked the captain. "Now," the officer said, nodding. "Now you go back to being a rancher. Your land is yours. The danger is gone. Justice will be done." Takakota stepped forward and held out his hand. "Your wife saved me twice," he said. "Once when I was a boy and again tonight. If you ever need anything, send word to the Apache. We honor our debts." As the federal men rounded up prisoners and the soldiers prepared to ride, Silas found himself alone with the 2 women who had stood guard over his life when he didn't know he needed guarding. "Thank you," he said simply. Ayana offered the first smile he'd seen from her. "Martha was our sister in all ways. But blood," she said. "Protecting you was protecting her." Kaya turned toward the east where the first gray light of morning was breaking across the plains. "She chose well when she chose you." Without another word, the sisters mounted their horses. Together they rode off into the dawn, shadows stretching long behind them as the sky turned gold. Silas remained still, alone now, but no longer afraid. This land, once vulnerable, was his. Truly his. And safe. The conspiracy had been broken, the names revealed, the evidence secured, and his wife's past, so carefully hidden, had only deepened his love for her. He turned and walked slowly behind the house to the small grave beneath. The oak. The torchlight had faded, but the rising sun lit the path in soft gold. He knelt beside the wooden cross, Martha's letter still held gently in his hands. "I understand now," he whispered. "You never stopped watching over us. Not even at the end." The wind stirred the grass around him, and the morning birds began to call. Sunlight caught on the spring near the edge of the property, clear water bubbling from the earth, flowing quiet and clean. That water had cost Morrison his life. It had lured Burke into corruption and downfall. But now it would remain untouched, unclaimed, except by the honest hands that lived beside it. Water for crops, water for animals, water for families, water that Martha had protected. And Silas Ward, rancher, widower, and now keeper of her legacy, understood the wealth she'd left him. Not just land, not just the truth, but love and freedom. The kind of riches Samuel Burke would never live long enough to understand.